What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Harold Port Podcast. I'm your host, Harold Port. Today, we got a special episode. We'll be breaking down some recent albums that have come out, like Don't Tap the Glass by Tyler, the Creator, Let God Sort 'Em Out by Pusha T and his brother Malice. They are known as Clips. And I'll be talking about Jack Boys 2 with Travis Scott and Don Toliver, as well as breaking down UFC Fight Night Abu Dhabi. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Starting with Let God Sort 'Em Out with Clips. This was a 13-song album, and starting with The Birds Don't Sing, we have a song that has a somber tone as Pusha T is reflecting on what it was like losing his mother and how he found the news. And we get a great feature from John Legend on the hook. And then Chains and Whips, we get a good hook from Pusha T. We get the best feature on the album from Kendrick Lamar. And with POV, the next song, we get Tyler, the Creator, has a good feature. We get Malice having either the first or second best verse on the album towards the outro of this song. And we get a good hook from Pusha T. Ace Trumpets further down the album is my favorite hook of the album, with Pusha T rapping about ballerinas inside of his snow globe and strippers shaking the ass, watching the dope blow. It was fire. Fico had a good hook, and yeah, this album was a 9 out of 10 in my opinion. The lyrics, the hooks, everything just went together nicely, and Pusha T once again back at it again with the heat. His album Daytona was a 10 out of 10, one of my favorite albums. Um, his last album, It's Almost Dry, from 2022, was a great album, 9 out of 10. And his brother Malice had one of the best verses on that album, and they're back with the Clips album, and this another great album. Hats off to them. If you care to check it out, I think it'll be a great listen. But moving on, we got Don't Tap the Glass by Tyler, the Creator. Tyler, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a fan of your music. Starting from like 2021, I want to say, when I listened to your whole discography, starting with Goblin, then working my way up to Call Me If You Get Lost, which was the album that had come out at that time. But this album, it's called Don't Tap the Glass. I'm not gonna lie, I tapped the glass. Matter of fact, I was banging on it and I almost broke it. This album was ass. I like the song Ring Ring Ring. Um, and that was a song where Tyler was coming with some like melodic, kind of like soft vocals, which is the Tyler that I like. I don't like the aggressive Tyler like in the intro of the album. And the album coming in, I didn't really have the highest expectations considering he had just dropped an album last year, Chromacopia, which was like a 7 out of 10 for me. It wasn't anything that compares to Eagle or Call Me If You Get Lost, but it was better than this. And then this, eh, yeah, damn, I would have been cool not getting this, but Ring Ring Ring, it was like. And then we got Jack Boys 2 by Travis Scott and Don Toliver. I like the JB2 radio song that opened up the album. The songs I like were Contest, PBT, and Shine. And I think Glorilla had the best verse of the album on Shine. And most notably, she rapped about how she regrets being too young to have fun with Matthew McConaughey, similar to how J. Cole rapped about being too young for Nia Long or Lisa Bonet. But this album it was like, I want to say it was ass. It was like, I probably gave it like a 3 or 4 out of 10. Most of the hooks didn't hit for me. Um, I guess the instrumentals were good for the most part, but I don't really think any of them, Travis or Don Toliver, came with anything that was crazy lyrically. Um, I've never really been a fan of Don Toliver. except for the song After Party. I guess one of his songs or two, but yeah, I wasn't really expecting much considering what I had seen on Instagram prior to listening to the album, but yeah, I would say this kind of matched my expectations of what I heard. But moving on to UFC Fight Night Abu Dhabi, starting with Amanda Ribas and Tabitha Ricci. Amanda Ribas has a record of 12 wins and 6 losses, whereas Tabitha Ricci has a record of 11 wins and 3 losses. Both these girls are coming off losses in the last fights. Amanda Ribas lost to Rose Namajunas, I believe, and Tabitha Ricci lost to Yan Xiaonan. With this fight, we have a kickboxer primarily, and Amanda Ribas, she prefers to keep the fight standing primarily. And then we have a judo practitioner in Tabitha Ricci. She has solid pressure on the feet with her striking, but she's mostly known for her ground game and her wrestling. With this fight, I think Amanda Ribas, she's faced the better competition. I think she can keep the fight at range with leg kicks, teeps, and jabs, and she doesn't have the best takedown defense, as that was the reason she lost to Rose Namajunas. But I think she's been exposed to takedown threats from higher position, and I think Amanda Ribas is gonna win this one. I'm gonna say she wins this fight by decision. Moving up next, we got Muslim Salikov versus Carlos Leal in the welterweight division. Muslim Salikov has a record of 21 wins and 5 losses, and Carlos Leal has a record of 22 wins and 6 losses. Both these guys are coming off wins in the last fights. Muslim Salikov, in his last fight at UFC Macau, he won by a spinning wheel kick in the first round, I believe. And Carlos Leal, in his last fight, he knocked out Alex Moreno in the first round. So we have a kickboxer in Muslim Salikov versus a pressure striker who primarily likes to box, and Carlos Leal, he has good leg kicks too. With this fight, Muslim Salikov, his chin has been deteriorating over his last few fights, like against Randy Brown where he got knocked out. And he's taken some big shots from likes of Li Jingliang. I think Carlos Leal is going to be able to pressure him, and I think if he gets in boxing range, I think he can find a knockout in the first or second round. If Muslim can keep him at bay, have success with his body kicks, maybe teeps or things like that to keep Carlos Leal at bay, maybe he can find himself with the knockout or decision. But I think Carlos Leal, the way he looked in his first two fights, first against Rinat Fakhretdinov, where he won that fight clearly, but they gave it to Rinat because he was the hometown guy in the Middle East. I think Carlos Leal won that fight like either 29-28 or 30-27. But against Alex Moreno, he avenged himself and showed that he's the real deal with the pressure, the power. I think he's built well for his weight class. He's a big guy, and I think maybe the judges are gonna be running it back on Carlos Leal. They're gonna pick the Russian guy, but I think Carlos Leal is gonna win this fight. I'm gonna say he wins this fight by knockout in round one. Moving on next, we got Bryce Mitchell versus Said Nurmagomedov. Bryce Mitchell's record of 17 wins and 4 losses, and Said Nurmagomedov has a record of 18 wins and 4 losses. Both these guys are coming off losses in the last fights. Bryce Mitchell, this is his debut in the bantamweight division. He's coming down from featherweight, as he said he felt a size disadvantage that was significant against the likes of an Ilia Topuria and a John Silva. So he's coming down to bantamweight to be able to balance out that advantage and have more favorable matchups in terms of strength. And then we have Saidner Magomedov, who in his last fight against Vinicius Oliveira, he was pressured and Vinicius was able to use his force against him like how he does against his opponents. Usually, Saeed has he has good striking, he has good kicks, good wrestling, and he has good submissions. He has a good guillotine. And then we have Bryce Mitchell, who has solid striking, but he prefers to take his opponents down and prefers to either find a submission or be able to control and ground and pound his opponents. But with this fight, I'm gonna say Bryce Mitchell is gonna make good on his debut, and I think Saeed Nurmagomedov, he's usually the favorite in his fights, and against Jonathan Martinez, he was a good favorite. And I think he either lost that fight or was competitive, more competitive than the line suggested. And in his last fight against Vinicius Oliveira, he was also a favorite, like a 2-1, and he lost that fight. I think he isn't as good as the betting market suggests that he is. I think he gets hyped up because his last name is Nurmagomedov and his last name ends in an OV like a lot of the Dagestani and Russian fighters. But I'm gonna say Bryce Mitchell is going to be able to pressure him, be able to take him down, and I think he's gonna win this fight by decision. Moving up next, we got Nikita Krylov with a record of 30 wins and 10 losses versus Bogdan Guskov, who has a record of 17 wins and 3 losses. Nikita Krylov in his last fight at UFC 314 in Miami, he lost to Dominic Reyes by a first round knockout. Dominic Reyes was able to catch him with the pull two counter as Krylov was entering the distance with his hands down. It was similar to how like Conor McGregor knocked out Jose Aldo, and or Bogdan Guskov is coming off a win in his last fight against Billy Alakana. He won by a round to submission. In the first round, he wasn't having as much success, but he was able to find more success in the second round. And with this fight, we have a well-rounded fighter in Nikita Krylov. He has good striking, good wrestling, and has good jiu-jitsu. He doesn't have the best cardio, and he doesn't have the best defense on the feet. He usually has his head on the center line. And then we have Bogdan Guskov, who has good boxing, doesn't have great takedown defense, and he has solid jiu-jitsu. I think with this fight, Nikita Krylov is just gonna have more past the victory, considering he has the wrestling edge. And I think he can present problems for Bogdan when he tries to close the distance with his kicks. Nikita Krylov has good kicks. He has head kicks and body kicks. I think Nikita Krylov, his best path to victory is taking the fight to the ground and implementing his wrestling and jiu-jitsu and being able to find a submission. Bogdan Guskov has had problems with guys taking him down, like in the Billy O'Connor fight, and he almost got submitted in that fight. But I'm gonna say Nikita Krylov, he's faced the better competition. Magomed Ankalaev, who's a light heavyweight champion. He's faced Dominic Reyes, former title challenger. I'm gonna say Nikita Krylov wins this fight by a round two submission, maybe like a head and arm triangle. Moving up next in the flyweight division, we have Asu Amabayev versus Jose Ochoa. Asu Amabayev is coming off a loss in his last fight against Manel Kape. Manel Kape was able to keep him at distance, keep him at the end of his strikes, and not let Asu Amabayev get going with his wrestling game. And Jose Ochoa, he's coming off a win by a round two knockout against Cody Durden. Showed great striking in that fight. And before that, in his fight against Loner Kavanaugh, he also showed good striking, but Loner was just a little bit too well-rounded for him. But with this fight, I'm gonna say the threat of Asu Amabayev's takedowns isn't something that Jose Ochoa has exactly seen before. And I think his experience against Manel Kape is gonna do him good in this fight. I think if Jose Ochoa is gonna win this fight, I think he has to do what he did in his last fight against Cody Durden with his kicks, be able to keep Amabayev at range, similar to how Manel Kape did. Present uppercuts, knees, and things. Don't throw too many kicks because Asu Amabayev will be able to turn those kicks into takedowns. But I think Asu's gonna get back on track. Maybe he's not gonna have as much of respect for Jose Ochoa striking as different Manacapa. He's just gonna try to close the distance and try to get to his takedowns as fast as he can. But I'm gonna say Alcim is gonna win this fight by a decision. Moving up next, we got Shar Magomedov with a record of 15 wins and 1 loss, and then we got Marc-Andre Barrio with a record of 17 wins and 9 losses. So we got a one-eye bandit in Shar Magomedov, a guy who's legally blind in one eye. He usually fights in the Middle East because of that. He can't really fight in the US. Really fits the pirate persona that he has. And then we have Marc-Andre Barrio, whose nickname is the Power Bar. He likes to pressure his opponents on low combinations when he has his opponents up against the fence. And he even mixes in the grappling sometimes. But Shar Magomedov, he has great kicks. He's an elite kickboxer. He has good leg kicks, great body kicks, and he has spinning wheel kicks to the head. And in his second to last fight, he knocked out Armand Petrosian with a double spinning back fist. So he's very creative in the striking department. In his last fight against Michael Venom Page showed that he was a level above Shar. But I think with that experience against an elite fighter like an MVP, I think Shar can get back on track. I think stylistically, Marc-Andre Barrio has the style to be Shar, but his chin hasn't been holding up the same as it once did. In the last few fights, he's been getting knocked out. I think if he is going to win, he's gonna have to stay in Char's face because that's what Char tends to struggle against. But I think Char is gonna be able to keep him at bay, maybe find a kill shot. I'm gonna say Char Magomedov is gonna win this fight by a round two knockout. I think he's just better than Marc Andre. I think he's faster, and it's gonna be tough for Marc Andre to close the distance, considering he's been getting knocked out recently against the kicking game of Shara. I'm gonna say Shara is gonna win this one. Moving on to the co-main event of the evening, we got the former bantamweight champion Petr Yan, No Mercy versus Marcus McGee. Petr Yan has a record of 18 wins and 5 losses, and Marcus McGee has a record of 10 wins and 1 loss. Both these guys are coming off wins in the last fights. Petr Yan won by I think 50-45 decision against Davidson Figueiredo in his last fight, and Marcus McGee won his last fight against Jonathan Martinez. Both these guys have great boxing. Petr Yan has been one of the best boxers in the UFC for years. He has great combinations. He has good kicks as well. He's an overall well-rounded fighter, good wrestling, and Marcus McGee, he has good power, good combinations with his hands, good footwork. I think Marcus McGee does struggle against leg kicks. That could be a hole for Petr Yan to take advantage of. And if Petr gets caught too long in boxing range, I think Marcus McGee can find counters on him, find good opportunities against that. But I think Petr has more weapons in this fight with his wrestling game, and this is a big step up in competition for Marcus McGee, going from Jonathan Martinez to the former bantamweight champion in Petr Yan. Petr Yan can also find successful body kicks as Marcus McGee is within like kicking range. He tends to reset as guys switch stances. So as Petr Yan switches stances, he can go for a body kick. But with this fight, I'm gonna say Petr Yan is gonna win this fight by decision. Marcus McGee is good, but there's levels to this game, and Petr Yan is just he's on that elite level, and I think Petr Yan might put himself back into title consideration with the win in this one. Moving on to the main event of the evening, we got the former middleweight champion Robert Whittaker versus Rainier the Ritter. Robert Whitaker has a record of 27 wins and 8 losses, and Rainier the Ritter has a record of 20 wins and 2 losses. Robert Whitaker is coming off a first round rear naked choke loss to Hamza Chimaev in his last fight in October, whereas Rainier the Ritter is coming off with a win against Bo Nickel at UFC Des Moines a few months ago. Robert Whitaker is 6 foot compared to Rainier de Ritter at 6'4". This is a big step up in competition for Rainier de Ritter, going from Bo Nickel to the former middleweight champion of Robert Whitaker. In Rainier de Ritter's last fight, he was able to break Bo Nickel down and get a knockout using knees to the body in that fight. And he showed that Bo Nickel's wrestling doesn't quite translate into being elite at the MMA level. Yeah, Rainier, he has elite jiu-jitsu. He has solid wrestling. He doesn't really have the best entries. His technique isn't the best, but he has he has okay striking as well. He's more so known for his pressure. He's not really the most technical, but he has a plot armor style. Him and Dracus Duplessis, they both find ways to win against guys who look more technical than them on the outside in. But with Robert Whitaker, we have a guy who has elite striking, elite footwork. He has combinations where he blitzes into guys and he's able to land hooks and then get out of range. He has great kicks. He has good wrestling. He was a wrestler in Australia, and he has good top pressure when he takes guys down, and he has great cardio as well. But with this fight, I think Robert Whitaker is a better striker. I think he's probably the more technical wrestler, as I think Rainier, the way he takes guys down, it's more so based off like pressure and wearing his opponents down. I mean, yeah, he took down Kevin Holland and he submitted Gerald Mearshard, but I don't see him doing that to Robert Whitaker, man. Um, Robert Whitaker's faced guys like Yoel Romero, faced Marvin Vittori. I mean, those guys don't have like the jiu-jitsu that Rainier has, but I think the only department that I'll give Rainier the edge in this fight is the jiu-jitsu. And I think Robert Whitaker's gonna be able to defend the takedowns. I think he's gonna be able to keep the fight standing. If he does get taken down, I think he'll be able to pop right back up. I see Rainier having the cardio disadvantage too. He was getting pieced up by Gerald Mearshart on the feet. I think he found a submission in round 3 by head and arm triangle, but round 2 and 3 he didn't look as good. And then yeah, against Boneko he was able to use his pressure, but nah, I think Robert Whitaker he's seen the highest level of the game, and I think Robert Whitaker's gonna be able to get it done. I think he finds a knockout in, I'm gonna say, round 3. Rainier's good, but there's levels to this. Robert Whitaker's elite, I think, and they get it done. But last but not least, I want to talk about Hulk Hogan. I want to talk about one of the goats of professional wrestling, the main guy who in the 80s he was able to take professional wrestling from more of a regional type of event into the mainstream, into selling out arenas like Madison Square Garden against the likes of Andre the Giant. And he made my childhood more interesting. Me and my little brother, we used to play a game called Legends of WrestleMania when we were little, and that game caused many of the fits between my brother caused us to throw controllers and rage, but he made it more exciting for us, and he's inspired a lot of superstars in not just the WWE but in wrestling in general. And he's made mistakes as Terry Bollea, but I think we should remember Hulk Hogan as legend in the wrestling scene. I think he'll be missed by fans and anybody who loved the sport wrestling. So thank you, Hulk Hogan. Without you, I don't think I would have been as into wrestling. Maybe wrestling is just something that I maybe seen once or twice, but I wouldn't have watched it like every week. But thanks to you making the platform as big as it got, I was able to do that, and I'm thankful for that. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode of the Hero Report podcast. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment on YouTube as it helps out with the algorithm. These videos do take quite a bit of time to edit, so it would be appreciated if you guys show some love. But that will do it for this episode of the Hero Report podcast. Hope you guys are doing well. And I'll catch you guys in another episode of the Hero Report podcast. Peace.